Okay, welcome everyone. Sorry we're late. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This meeting has been advertised in accordance with the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act and is publicly accessible in accordance with law. Roll call, please.
Yes. I'm sorry, may I have a pencil? Kevin Bruselli,
Here?
Rocco,
Here.
David Sedadino, absent. Dr. George,
Here.
Sarah,
Here.
Maria. Maria here? No, absent. Rosemary's here. Zainab. Absent. Maddie here. Mayor Walker, absent. Frank Weber.
Here,
Okay, thank you.
Okay, salute to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of
of
America
America,
and
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all.
I'll just ask everyone to remain standing for one moment, as today is a very solemn day. We can take a moment of silence for all those lives lost on September 11th, 2001. Thank you. We don't have anything for executive session, I don't take, right? Nothing, right?
Rosemary, did you want to have something in executive session or no?
Should we? I guess.
There was something you wanted to mention yesterday that you would have preferred to discuss there, but
Yeah, I mean,
it could come up later.
We can, if we could.
What
take
is
a
it in
moment.
reference to?
Funding. Spending.
The funding, does that need to be, I don't think that,
Yeah, if it has to do with the budget, just normal public expenditures, that is not an exec session issue.
yeah, it's not.
Yeah, it was just a question from the meeting yesterday.
Okay.
Okay, so
Okay.
we'll
Deal
bring
with
that
that
up
under
in the finance?
Well, no, I'd
Yeah.
rather not. I would want to do it in executive session.
Yeah, but it's not exec, it's.
So that's fine. I'll
yeah.
just,
Okay.
You can speak to Kevin and
okay,
Don
we
Yeah,
can have that
separately.
conversation.
Okay.
All
That's
right,
fine.
okay, so then we'll go on to the minutes. Approval of the regular meeting minutes for August 14th.
Can somebody make a motion?
I will make a motion.
Rocco makes the motion.
Second,
Kevin second.
any discussion on that? Okay, roll call, please.
Kevin,
Yes?
Rocco,
Yes.
Dr. George,
Abstain.
abstain. Sarah,
Yes.
yeah, I'm a yes. Zainab is not here, right? Maddie? Yes. And Frank,
Abstain.
abstain. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, nothing under personnel, so we'll move on to finance, the bill listing in the amount of $185,289.04. Maria is not here, but I did not see any questions raised.
She did have one
She-
question.
Okay,
So, and I think this is relevant for everyone to recall in our progression with Hoopla as we're addressing ebooks and e-resources. We've made changes, we've increased our budget, and because we increased our budget, the consortium used to manage our relationship with that vendor with Hoopla. And I didn't feel that it was maximized in the way that the salesperson, our sales rep for that product, is very eager to assist us. So we changed it over. So what you will see is that we're now paying Midwest Tape directly, which is the company that owns Hoopla, rather than LMXAC. And Maria wanted to understand that, but I thought it was a good idea for the full board. We still do need to increase our ebooks a bit. So next month, I'm gonna have a proposal for another product of theirs with a project, but that will be for next month.
okay.
Yep.
Okay, so with that, I'll ask for a motion to approve the bill listing.
I'll make the motion.
Thanks. A second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any discussion on the bill listing?
When, I don't know, Howard, whatever, when can we anticipate getting a budget for this year?
So I'm going to say that I will anticipate the budget to be moved next month. So I have reached out to the committee chair to get together to meet on the budget, and I haven't had response. So Frank, I was going to reach out to you directly. I think that if we can't get together with the committee chair, that you and I will take the committee, the budget forward and meet as a committee. We'll invite Maria, of course.
Yeah,
But-
not a problem.
Yeah, so we will get something for this month, and I'll speak to you about that separately, Frank, and then we'll look to get that moved at the October meeting.
Okay,
All right.
Rocco,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
I am a yes. Maddie,
Yes.
Frank,
yes,
Kevin,
Yes.
thank you.
Dr.
Did you get
George.
Dr. George?
Oh, I'm so sorry, Dr. George. Did I
No,
lose you? Oh, I lost you in the mix. I apologize, Dr.
She-
George.
she's out.
She's
my
out.
vote,
She's-
Okay.
Right, she's, until we get a budget. Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Anything for old business? Okay, nothing. I'll go on to new business.
Okay, I have something for new business.
Okay.
So we had a buildings and grounds meetings, and we talked about several different projects. One of the projects that there's actually several that we're going to talk about tonight. One of them will be in the buildings and grounds reports, one will be in the director's report. But I'd like to bring this particular one up to discussion and just as an introduction. I don't plan on anything being passed or being moved tonight. There's no motions on this. This is purely informational for the board. And it's about the self-checkout and this RFID system. It is an extensive project. My hopes is that after Dawn explains the ins and outs of this, if you have any questions or need more information, that you'll contact her. Next month, we plan on having someone who represents these companies that are going to be talking about this technology. They'll be at the meeting next month. So you can ask questions then. And then I'm hoping that as a board, we will have a vote either in November or December about this particular, program.
So this is one vendor that handles both the RFID and the self-checkout?
Yes, I'm going to turn it over to Dawn
Okay.
because she can explain it a heck of a lot better than I can.
Okay.
So we've had a self-check machine,
Mhm.
and it's a self-check machine that uses barcodes. You can do that. Our books are only barcoded. So we don't have a security system. We don't have an ability to do an inventory without physically touching every single book. And we aren't able to move forward with the 24-hour libraries, which are basically, you can get one that's like an Amazon locker where people can pick up their books at any hour and they're tracked and they're checked in. You look at our book drops right now, things just get put in there. They don't get checked in, which is why people don't really use them, because they want to see immediately that their book was returned.
Excuse me, Don, we have somebody in the waiting.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, thanks, Chris. I didn't know this.
Okay. Okay. So there's a host of technologies that are kind of integral to how we envision a branch, another branch of the library moving forward and what that looks like. None of those things can be approached without RFID. RFID is radio frequency identification, and literally you pick up a book, you put it near the sensor, the pad, and it checks the item out. So if we get the RFID, and that means physically someone has to come in and touch every single book in the library to put a tag on it. So what we get done, if we get the RFID, is you get an entire inventory done that we've not had in about 20 years. You have access to more self-check options. You have access to the 24-hour libraries, all the technologies that a lot of libraries have now. I would say the majority, but we're kind of in the minority with not having that. So before we get the self-check machine and all of those pieces, so I brought to the committee yesterday prices from the two main vendors. There's a third vendor you can get things from with regard to these technologies. The only good reviews that I've gotten from other libraries is these two companies. So anybody who's gone with the other company has not been able to keep up. And in fact, our outdated self-check machine is from that third vendor that we're just not gonna, I don't think we need to move forward with them. So I have catalogs, I've held meetings, and what I'd like to know from the board is that the RFID, the tagging, is the most expensive part of this entire venture. It is over $100,000 to buy the tags and have them put on the collection. And that's a very big investment, but it's an investment in our physical. And I know that there's going to be a lot of questions, and there are going to be a lot of people who need time to digest this. So this is why all we wanted to do was introduce that this information is going to be coming to everyone. And then I assume that the board would like to hear from both of those vendors. So my thought was to ask them to come in for 10 minutes each to give kind of their vision of what we would be doing. And they're doing that in the hopes of starting the relationship with us to where we can really build and grow and look at some of these technology-based options for how we're getting materials into the hands of our community.
Okay, when can we expect to see the first bit of information? I mean, we're gonna get information on them prior to meeting with them next month, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I have the approach, which is what I want to do is just make sure that the board approves of my investment of time in these. And then I'll ask them to make sure that each of those vendors can send that information, and I'll provide any overview that's needed before then. And then we'll actually be able to ask them questions at that October meeting.
Yeah.
How does it work as new books come in?
So this is where right now we're with book processing, each book gets a barcode on it. And what it's going to get instead is one of these RFID tags.
And-
So like, what I'm saying is, after all the books get the RFID, how about additional books, like the newer books that come in? Is that gonna increase the budget, or?
It's kind of the same processing. And this is what I'm saying. Right now, we're already paying for the processing for a barcode to go on there. They're going to need the RFID tag. And we do need to look at an impact. I think the tags we were looking at, and the vendors are they're able to answer all of these questions. I think they're about like 15 cents a book. So if I look at, we added 12,000 new pieces of physical material to the collection this year, that would be 15 cents. So it would translate into a person who does better math than I do.
So we spoke as well about becoming a library of things, other things other than just books.
Mhm.
So this would cover those items as well.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is where the other thing that I like about this is when we did the keyless entry, we talked about it being an expandable system. And that's precisely what this is. You can look at, do you want to have security gates? Because, you know, a lot of libraries are getting rid of them, but I also think that people know that Old Bridge doesn't have security, so we do get targeted. So this is a better way for us to do inventory and to make sure that our physical collection, that we're protecting that investment. I think we're looking more and more at having, you know, our trendy items, making sure that those are available in electronic format, but then what physically can go on our shelves. But our investment in our long-term core collection, I feel like that could use that protection. And the library of things, no one can take that and walk out the door if we have security.
Yeah.
So were there any other questions about that?
Yes, how many items would have to be currently with all of the things that we have, books, whatever? How
It's
many,
about
how many,
140,000.
that's all we have. I thought
So-
it was more extensive than that.
What's that?
I thought we had a larger amount of books than 140,000.
That's physical materials. That's what we're getting from the numbers from the catalog. When I ask for them, it's about 140,000, and that includes the DVDs and all of that.
All right, so that's going to cost roughly 70 cents a piece, something like that, to do.
Yeah, and that's for someone to come in, coordinate the project, because records have to be, changed in the catalog as we go. It's a lot of work to get that done. And then right now they physically have to put a hand on every single item and choose the tag.
All right. The other thing, you advised us a number of meetings back that our scanning system was not working. And do we know how long that was not in effect, where people could just, if knew it didn't work, they could just walk out with the book and you'll never see it again?
I know that we have security gates, but I don't know when at any point anybody. So in order for those security gates to work, if it was ever actually done here, there was a little strip of like a magnetic tape, not magnetic, but we used to call it tattle tape. And that's what would set off those sensors. Those sensors have not been active in anyone's recent memory here.
All right. And I guess the other question I would ask, on the assumption that we were losing a lot of material, and a person comes in and wants to look for a particular book, and we're supposed to have 4 of them, and we have 2 out and we can't find the other 2. Have they ever been keeping a record of that?
I'm so sorry. So if I can just repeat it back to you to make sure I'm answering you. If we have 4 copies of one title.
That's what the inventory says.
Right.
And we have 2 books that are out, which we can substantiate, which means we should have 2 books on the shelf. Person goes to the shelf and they can't find it. Do they then just ignore it, or do they come to the, how did we ever know before when we were losing material?
So when someone comes up and reports an item missing, there's a process right now that on a monthly basis, missing items or missing item list is generated. But if someone doesn't ask for it, we don't know that it's not there. And I will tell you that last week, a woman came in searching for 2 items, and one of them was not in the right place, partially because of the new catalog system. I'm working on that. And the other one was missing. So we frequently have missing items come up. They get looked for once a month, and then it goes out to the librarians for them to decide whether we want to reorder. So there is a process that hasn't been strictly followed, but I'm absolutely getting it going again.
One of the things you may want to consider before we do all of the tagging is to get some idea of, do we have a list of what the most popular books are going out, that kind of thing? Do we know by circulation?
I mean, you can go in and you can certainly search for the items that have the highest circulations.
Yeah, and the thing I would suggest, that's certainly a job that pages should be able to do. When the librarian comes up with a list and says, tell me how many of these I have, somewhere along the line, because it would just be interesting to find out, do you know what, or there's maybe somebody at LMXAC you can ask, what does the average library spend in buying new books each, proportionally, obviously, to their collection each year?
Yeah, I've never seen anyone keep that statistic, but I can certainly take a look in the library literature. That sounds like something that would be more of a national figure, but I can certainly take a look.
Well, since we're one of the safer towns in New Jersey before we got all these
right, but you have
uninvited people.
You have patrons from 42 other towns now in New Jersey that are able to use this library.
No, I'm aware of that, fully aware of it.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone else for any discussion on this? Okay. We're good?
Yeah.
All right, anything else? So that was it for new business.
That's it for new business.
Anyone else new business?
Yeah, under new business, besides my problems with the couple of operations I had on my foot and sepsis and COVID, which it's been a good time. I'm on, I'll be 80 in December, and I've survived sepsis twice and COVID twice. So I feel good, and I want to stay active. Now, what would be helpful is Can somebody tell me what the size font print is on this printed material? Are we trying to save a lot of paper? Or have we
No,
considered?
that's the default. I believe it's a size 12.
I was
What
gonna
I,
say 10, but
what
maybe
I'm,
12.
what
It's
I'm,
not
print-
10.
It's not
It's
10.
whatever
What-
comes up as default on the computer.
yeah, well, my suggestion should be, if you're worried about paper, just print on both sides and number the pages, please. Not everything we get is a numbered page. And also have a title on some of these pages that don't have any title. So it certainly would make it a lot more easy to read and understand. For
Provide a
example,
hard copy or soft copy?
no, this is when, well,
Soft copy.
it would have to be, it would
So
have to
Frank,
be,
you could increase the size. You're getting it soft copy, no?
I'm going to be getting it the other way, but that's not my point. If I want to print it, then I have to go through the machinations of changing the font all the time. Now I have a lot of background in printing, and I know my eyes aren't as good as they were when I was 21, but the fonts on the pages that we printed, which came, we have a minimum font set for 10 points. This looks like it's more in the neighborhood of 8. And
There's nothing that's an 8, but can you tell me what specific, because like the director's report has a title at the top and it's.
no,
in
I
a
know you do.
12.
I'm only addressing the things that aren't
I
indicated.
understand. I'm trying to ask, I mean,
So which document specifically are you looking at, Frank? Do you know?
Well, yeah, the document which says number, and then and I assume that this is story times and all that. It's all of those things. There's no title on that. Not the page that I have. And it would,
so it has a title at the beginning. It's the department reports. I'm
well,
holding that
all
here.
right. So you listed on it as being a department report. Let me go to that page that I
And
printed.
it has page numbers, so you can tell it's part of that document. I'm just trying to identify so we make sure that we can make a correction
All
for
right,
you.
let me make a single explanation. If something's 3 or 4 pages, it should be numbered at the bottom of the page. And if you don't know what document it is necessarily because the page became separated for any reason, it should have a title on the page. I don't want to have to go into the agenda to find out that. I think that's common business practice in most things where you have multiple
Right,
documents to
so
look at.
let's take this offline. And what we'll do is we'll look at the documents, making sure that they're all numbered, and larger print.
I haven't made
Where
any
necessary.
changes to
Okay.
anything that was been done here.
Okay, so we'll look into that.
Okay.
All right, any other new business?
Yeah, one of the things we got now, there was going to be a little discussion, we were said to believe, on this issue of a vendor for furniture or refreshing and so on and so
Attention,
forth.
attention. I'm in the middle of a lecture right now and you are interrupting my
Tell me
lecture.
how to.
Do not mute me. I'm in the middle of a lecture right now and you're interrupting my lecture. Shut
You
the
know how
fuck up.
to. There we go. No.
That's fine.
Shh.
No, are you gonna remove them? Yes.
He's interrupting the meeting.
Okay, all right.
I'm sorry, do you not want me to?
That's fine, that's fine. I was just gonna say just mute them.
He just said.
He
shut
he
the-
unmutes me when
Oh,
he can
okay.
Yeah,
override
he's
that.
overriding. so.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
I'm sorry, that's my
Okay.
inner teacher
Yep.
that
yep,
comes out.
that's
You also appear to have muted Frank.
Wow.
So Frank, can you unmute?
I guess that's the pitfalls of having. a Zoom.
Clicked on mute.
There
we
you
go.
are.
There we go. Okay.
So
All
you
right,
weren't
back.
listening all that time?
No, I'm sorry, someone interrupted the meeting.
Yes, I'm
and
aware of it.
was Pardon me?
No, I'm aware of that, and he was pretty nasty.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, so just so everyone knows, I muted him, he unmuted himself, and so I removed him from the meeting.
Okay, all right, so let's continue on. I'm sorry, Frank, where were you?
Well, the other thing,
Furniture.
Dawn, you sent us a document, which again is not signed. So to be another thing, I'd like to know who wrote a particular report or anything. I think normally if we put anything on paper, whoever should produce that paper should at least have their name on it so we know who it is if we want to look back historically or at any time. The other thing I'm concerned about is the company that you're leaning toward. Now, I wouldn't know them if I fell over them, but I did a little research. And one of the things you mentioned in yours recommendation was that this was the best company. Well,
That's not at all what I said.
what did you say? Tell me, where's that letter?
What I said in here is that they were well regarded and that they had submitted a proposal. And
Yes.
I believe, Rocco, did you want to speak about that, or do you
Well,
want me to?
let me finish my question, please.
I think Frank should finish first and then we can respond.
Okay,
What I'm suggesting is, we don't know, what did you send out for them to give you a proposal on? We don't know, have we seen a proposal?
the committee has,
Yes,
And the committee has seen the proposal.
yes,
and
we
And
have.
why should the decision on whether you go with an individual should be based on the committee can make a recommendation, but the board should be aware of it because there's at least 5 or 6 companies in the state of New Jersey who do renovations on libraries. And I have lists of many of the libraries they've done. They're mostly in the New York state and New Jersey area, a few smaller places. Many of the towns are wealthier towns than Old Bridge. Most of the towns are wealthier towns than Old Bridge. So they have some high-end clients, which begs, in my question is, how expensive are they going to be? Now, you also sent us photographs, or I don't know who those photographs. Did you take those, or were they taken by? Okay.
no, I took them.
So the red share that you've had in there were like 15 or 18 of those from my memory in the library,
Yes,
and only 1 or 2 of them seemed, other than a good cleaning, and are we trying to be spending the taxpayers' dollars being concerned about having functional furniture or something which is the current, how shall I say, the current style? Because I don't know how French Provincial lasts as long as it did. But so my question is, we need more information than just one vendor. And we need to see the proposal that's going to the vendors, in my opinion.
so, yeah,
And I think that's exactly why this information was sent out,
Yeah.
Frank. So
What information?
the information that was sent out in the packet that is here right now so that people could ask these kind of questions.
Oh,
So
good. I'm glad I asked.
I've been full agreement with you. Yes, we could get more. This is why we brought it here. We're not looking to do
No, I
any kind of
understand that.
motion or any kind of movement right now.
No,
We're trying to
no,
go through a
that was-
process
that-
with the entire board.
That was clearly spelled out in what Dawn sent.
Okay,
The other consideration is the board needs to, we have a capital dollar amount in a report of which is roughly 1.4 million.
Mhm.
And if we want to do something in South Old Bridge, part of that's going to have to come from us, a significant part. So right now, what are your priorities? Do we ignore South Old Bridge? South Old Bridge, the biggest problem with it, in my opinion, is the elementary school kids get out at 3:45, Rocky, I believe it is. Somewhere around.
3:15 actually.
And then by the time they get off the buses, maybe it's
Yes,
another half.
depending on where, depending on what
Yeah.
school, what bus
So-
line, so on and so forth.
So if mom or dad wants to take their children to the main library and they're in Ward 5 and 6, maybe you get there at 6 o'clock if you're lucky, interferes with meals. So we got a branch down in Lawrence Harbor. We don't have anything at the other end of town. And Lawrence Harbor is far closer to the central branch than anything out in Ward 6 would be. So the question,
Agreed. And I think that part of the issue is that we've discussed South Old Bridge, but we haven't really taken the steps to move forward, right? So I think I've also brought up the fact that we need to come up with a list of priorities, strategic plan, so that we have it defined to the director where we want to focus, right? The focus wants to be South Old Bridge, the focus wants to be updating the interior of the central branch, so on, in what order. But I don't think as a board, we've gotten to that point yet. So they're doing what information is available and moving forward.
so that I would just simply try to recognize that, are we better off serving 2 of the wards in town than necessarily overspending on furniture particularly, or whatever the case may be, or renovations? And that before you get, I'd be happy to talk to somebody at town hall, because I don't know if you can expect them to pay for it. And you'd have to get an estimate on if you wanted to modify the firehouse that's on there. That's a 2-story building.
But I think we're way off what we're talking about. We're talking about so many different things, and you need to have some patience. It all goes back to the fact that we don't even have a budget, so we don't even know what we want to spend for different things.
Well, we have a
I
cap.
don't know what's budgeted this year for furniture. Have we talked about that? Don't you guys, I know when I want to think about doing something over, the first thing I think about is how much money do I have to do it? You just don't go out and do things and then find out what it's going to cost.
Agreed,
But we're
Dr. George.
all over the place. I
We
think
know,
the issue
Joan,
that we were
we know
doing-
what the-
let me
We
finish.
have a preliminary budget. We've been waiting to finalize it and get it in front of the full board of
All right.
trustees. That's what I mentioned earlier, that we will take whatever
right.
steps we need to take to make sure that the budget gets
But-
moved next month.
but recognize that you do
It's
have,
at the bottom of why we're wandering, okay? We're not getting anything resolved because we don't look at all the issues. Now, to start discussing whether we're gonna put a branch down in South Old Bridge now, why are we doing that now? That's a whole different issue. And Frank, you have a committee that was supposed to go out and find out what the heck the people in South Old Bridge want. And I don't think you've ever had a meeting. So we're just operating in the dark. I am wasting a lot of time.
but
I
well,
think
just
that
as,
whatever
just
you're
as-
bringing up about the
Just to clar-
technology and checking books out and doing inventories, let's get into this century. Of course you need that done.
all right, we have a fixed capital budget right now, a quantitative amount of 1.3 something 6 million, correct, Dawn?
It is, but we have the money in this year's budget.
If we
which
knew
is
what
the
this
reason
year's
I'm bringing it
budget
up.
was. We don't
No,
know.
we
what it
have
is.
to
The
use
other
No,
that
thing I would
my
ask
point
you-
is the money that's in this year's capital budget is there
What
as a
are you
fixed
talking about?
amount because it's items that it requires it be there, the accounting system. So that is your capital. So having to get any other money is beyond that. That's right now, that's the dollar amount, assuming that number is correct. That's what you have to work with of all capital,
In
period.
our current budget, we could absolutely put the one phase of this. And I just want to add, Dr. George has brought up what I think is an excellent point many times. What is the purpose of the committee? So I'm just going to let you know what was sent out. So
What
we
committee
had-
is it?
If we had, what's that?
What committee is it?
Buildings and grounds. So I just want you to know what we did. I brought a number of projects to buildings and grounds particularly with an eye toward the spending from this year, because if you take a look at the finances, we've underspent. So it's certainly, I'm only looking at what we need to get us caught up as a library. So I brought those projects to Buildings and Grounds to discuss them. And what was sent out was a report that had a title and a date and all of that, that the committee had asked me to send that portion, so that today, what we could do was not approve a company, not pick a company, not spend any money, but simply agree on a process, so that as the committee moves forward and I move forward, I'm spending my time efficiently and effectively to keep them informed, so that they can then bring that to the rest of the board. I had thought that that was supposed to be the process.
But I think the process with committees, again, we need a workshop. We need it badly. We've needed it for a long time, because I don't understand how we're using committees. I have a whole different idea of what a committee is. And
Well, if you want to put to bed the idea of not doing something for South Oldbridge, and
I don't
again,
want to talk about South Oldbridge.
well, I do, Mayor
Really?
Jones. May I finish? Please,
Well,
thank
you
you.
interrupted me, Frank, and you know, this is silly. And we have a very good view sitting here of all of you at the table, and all of your eye rolling, and I think is well earned, because we're just wandering. We're not getting anything resolved.
Mhm.
When we talk about what you want to do, and I think the committees exist to kind of push it together, and so that we're not all discussing the same thing. But I don't think the committee is in lieu of the board. So
No.
that's
Oh, no,
different.
not at all. That is why,
No,
Dr. George, you're 100% correct, and I'm with you on this one, and that is why we're here to having this discussion now. And I'm not showing up and saying, okay, we need to vote on this right away. We are starting this process. It's literally in its infancy. And that is why I felt it was necessary for Dawn to talk to the entire board
Mhm.
about this information, so that we could have these discussions.
Yeah.
I feel like that is the proper way to do it. And, again, this isn't something that we are going to vote on next month. This is something that is a process that we will keep coming back to, keeping our eye on the ball and moving forward till we get to the point where we feel comfortable, when a budget is
Yep.
set in motion, when we understand our capital funds. If we want to have a discussion about South Oldbridge and a branch there, and if that's going to have an effect on this, that is why we're here. This is what these
Yeah.
meetings are for. This is what this venue is for. As the chairman of this committee, that I felt it was very necessary to share it with all of you, to have the discussion we're having right now.
And
I
don't
appreciate-
misunderstand, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that you should do South Oldbridge versus what we talked about tonight, whichever the board decides. But since there has been a period of time that, just from a realistic standpoint, they have the longest trip through the heaviest traffic to get to the
What does
library.
South Oldbridge have to do
Agreed,
with
and-
checking books out? I mean,
And so going back to this committee structure and the point that Rocco was making, I appreciate the fact that it's coming to the Board of Trustees at least 2 months prior to being asked to vote on it.
I know that. We
because
said
this
there's
way we're
no
not
vote
getting
tonight.
blindsided.
I'm
Let him
just,
finish.
It's
I'm
not where the
just
committee
tr-
met 2 weeks ago or last week and said, hey, Dawn, add this to the agenda. We'd like to get the Board of Trustees to vote on this, right? So we're
Kevin,
aware of it. He'll
Kevin-
get the information, share it, and we'll be able to ask those questions next month.
and
And then we'll take time after that
now,
before we even vote on it the month after that.
now the other question, Dawn, is this project for marking the books and all that, you cited $100,000. So that is a capital improvement project, I would believe.
It's not.
It's
It would
not.
be in this year's budget. If you
What
look
is
at
it
your
for?
finance, if you
No.
look at the finance sheet from this month, you are looking at the 2023 budget. Our budget this year was an increase of $200,000. No one's even looked at that yet. We have literally 3 months left in this fiscal year. None of the things I've brought forward would be in the capital, from the capital funds.
But
The-
We
but
don't
the
have the
determining,
budget to look at.
the determining question whether it's in, it comes out of capital or not. You can put more money out of the expense budget, the overage into the capital funds account, can you not?
You can move extra funds into the
Yes,
capital
yes.
fund,
Mhm.
yes, but if you
Yes.
don't need to, I'm not sure why I understand
Right.
why you would
Well,
want
because
to.
I'm just asking, if I'll get a clarification on whether it's a capital improvement item or not.
But I would like Chris to make that determination.
I think Dawn is saying that it's in the operating budget, whether or not that's been approved yet.
Yeah,
It is not a question of taking it out of capital reserves. It's not a question of moving it as a capital project. It's operating money to buy personal property for out on your floor.
Operate.
Yeah.
I think it's a different category than buying or renovating a new building.
No, but I think the question that he's asking is, so if we don't buy the furniture, then we have additional funds left at the end of the year that we can move in the capital budget to say, let's use this for next year.
Yes, if you don't use active
But-
funds, you can
We
lapse them into
started with-
capital.
But
We didn't start with
giving
buying
the
furniture.
additional-
We
we've been
started with buying stuff you need to run the library.
And,
Aren't they
and
two
improving,
different
and improving
things?
the library and the services to the community as a whole,
And-
right?
and-
That
And,
definition of-
and ultimately, this is the taxpayers' money. We don't go out, we don't go out, we don't ask for an increase year on year. The state does mandate, if I'm correct, Chris, that we
Yes.
get a 2% increase every year, whether the municipality wants to give it to us or
The-
not.
the state-
That's state law. So we are getting these funds, or we're provided these funds to provide the services to the community. The best services that we can provide to them.
yeah, it's 1/3 mil,
Mhm.
and that's calculated by the state, and that's based on our property taxes. And you're
Mhm,
absolutely
mhm.
right, and expressly, it's stated that the job of the trustees and the library director is to expend the municipal appropriation.
Right.
So,
So we're doing an injustice if we're not utilizing the funds and we're looking to use it for other sources.
yes,
And you're also, as
And-
we have this discussion every couple of months, if you underspend, you're at risk of a raid.
Right.
You cannot have more than 20% above your operating moving into the next fiscal period, and that has not happened to you yet.
And the other aspect is, it is wise to put funds into capital reserves for necessary upgrades, unexpected and so on. However, we are not in a position where we don't have those capital reserves if God forbid something were to happen, correct?
and that's the thing, if I'm not putting these projects forward, if we're dealing with broken furniture, with torn furniture, with all those kinds of things, and we're underspending grossly, which is what we can be put at risk of, it's not a matter to willy-nilly spend money. And Frank, I understand there are communities that have very high-end renovations with boats for kids, like life-size boats in the middle of the library. I don't think we're looking at that. In putting these pictures out, all I was trying to do was show that in every area of the library, from the computer area to our public desks, to the chairs people are sitting on, to the idea farm, which is, we're using folding tables in there. That this is something that, with the size of the appropriation and the size of our community, I think that it can be expected that we're not going to have furniture whose corners of the tables have to be duct taped. That's not
And
appropriate.
But Dawn, again, you're talking about history that you weren't here and you don't know about. We
Yeah.
did put money out and authorized the director then to meet with the board and pick out furniture. That was Barbara Cannon and it was Nancy Cohen. And they picked out furniture. Who cares? I don't care about that. So we did make some effort.
Sure.
My problem right now is we're not talking about capital if we're talking about the machinery to scan books. My understanding, and I could be all wrong on a lot of this, but I thought in order for something to be in capital, it had to last for 5 years. There were things attached to it before we say we're going to buy that out of capital funds. We don't get just a lump of money and do what you want with it.
No, we're not buying anything out of capital funds.
No.
Right, well, so what are we talking about it for?
Right.
What does South Oldbridge
I would,
have to do
I
with
would
buying a
suggest
candy?
that you get an official opinion, whether this is a capital budget item. And if you've got the money now in the operating budget, you can move that amount, whatever you need for this, into the capital budget and it'll be proper expended. If it's not, then you can spend it the way it is.
Yeah, so
I think it needs that clarification.
Now, and right now, it is not a capital project. It is a operating expense that is budgeted for, possibly in a budget that hasn't been approved yet.
yeah,
But it is not a capital project at this point in this conversation.
and if I
That
can,
all makes sense to me, okay? But as part of that, if I have a question, I'm going to say, what money are we saving, or if any, by putting this in? Because it's part of the equation. The 100,000, if we save 2 librarians that don't have to sit there putting things on book, that's a balance. That's the operation. That's makes it understand that. But we don't get those details. The things you're talking about with pictures, I don't have that correspondence in the packet that was mailed to me.
no, and I said, I was asked by the committee
Okay,
to send
what's
it
Frank
out.
talking about? He's talking about pictures. I don't,
I only sent that out yesterday in an email and it says, this is only for illustration purposes. There's no vote. There's absolutely nothing going on. This is just the start of the conversation. And we were looking for a general agreement with the approach, which is our library has 6 bays. If you look at each.
yeah, I know, and you
right.
want to move it around and that's great.
And we did the free one, we did the move, and that's worked out really well. And
Well, I
then
think-
now it's moving on to the others. And I put in this email, and Dr. George, again, this isn't for, really, that's just to introduce the discussion.
Okay, that must be missing from my email, but that
Yeah.
does happen, so I'll find it in my email. I don't want to take any
Yeah,
more.
yeah.
I'll forward it to you right now.
Rosemary's gonna forward it again, but what it was instead of doing one of those big renovations where they closed down the library, and Dr. George, I appreciate the carpeting, has been done and
just
that's
did
been
that.
updated. What's that?
We did the carpeting recently.
No,
Unless
I-
I'm,
That's what
I'm,
she's saying.
okay.
Yep.
That's what I'm trying to say. And then what I'm putting forth is that instead of doing this massive renovation, we can do it in 5 phases.
and I'm with you.
Yeah,
Good.
and less disruption and spreading the cost out over a period of a couple of years.
You don't have, and I think that you're looking at a lot of money that we have, that we've saved and whatever, and we can afford to make it look, that's fine. I have no problem with that. I
Okay.
also don't think that a committee, God bless you, Rocco, but I don't think he knows anything. You know anything more about scanning books and blah, blah, blah. I don't think that needs to go to a committee, that we listen to you on that. That's what we're paying you for. And if we need more research, we ask for it. Buildings and grounds, I don't think is scanning books out with machinery.
This
I
was
think
referred
got
several
confused.
months
Right,
ago.
it's an upgrade to the building, and certainly, it should go through a committee, that's probably the best committee for it. And I think that's why Rocco made the recommendation as
And
well,
that- yeah.
to bring the vendor in to answer questions.
Right,
because-
and that's why I brought it right away, Joan, because you're not, again, I'm agreeing
I
with you
appreciate what
100%.
you're
That-
doing, but
That's
I
what
just
that's
said
why
something.
like I said, this isn't something that we can sit here and
Right.
mull over in committee. This is something that needs to go to all of us. That's that.
It's
right,
also
and
part
I
of
think
the
what you
whole
did was
project
try
that
to make it easier. But I
allows.
think that's what got confusing with capital and non-capital. Because if you're putting in buildings and grounds, a lot of that stuff is capital. So could we just stay on topic? And
Okay,
I think what
so,
you're trying to
moving
do
on,
is
so
fine.
we're under new business. Anything else for new business? The
Yeah,
director's
I have a
report,
question.
okay?
Have we done it? This is probably for you. I really am not current with the current contract, but I thought we were supposed to start negotiations in September.
Yeah, I've been in touch with Bill Morawski and Debbie Parks. I was gonna touch on this under personnel negotiations, but I've asked them to give us their bargaining proposals. We're supposed to start subsequent to the September meeting, which means anytime after 8-ish tonight. And we will get their proposals. We will discuss them as a negotiations committee. Provide them with responses, provide them with our own proposals after Dawn and I have a discussion, and then that's vetted through the committee. And we'll be up and running.
I assume that when you say we, you mean personnel committee or somebody
Yes,
other than
Personnel
yourself?
Negotiations Committee, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we haven't had a meeting, so I just don't know where negotiations are and we should start it.
That is where they are. They are starting, and
Okay,
the next
appreciate it.
step will be for us to receive the proposals, which will then come to the whole committee.
Coming soon to a Zoom near you. All right. Director's report.
Okay, I have a lot. So, the first thing that I want to touch on is, with regard to getting the architect so that we can even present the board with a proposal to renovate the bathrooms. The bathrooms we know have seen better days, and they need to get done. That I had hoped that the town would allow us to use their QPA, which increases our bid threshold only for the architect, because the architect, we only got one proposal and it was over our bid threshold. So they've asked that we not do that. So I consulted with Chris, who corrected me, because I didn't realize that for architects and engineers, there is no bid
Yeah,
threshold.
it's a professional service, so we'll do it through an RFP, and then the board will get information when you get respondents to that.
Yeah.
I have a
So,
question before we get there. When
Yeah.
you rent a place, doesn't it come with a bathroom? Why are we responsible for, I don't know what you're doing in the bathroom. If you're just painting it blue, who cares?
No,
But
so-
if you're retiling it and everything else, I think we need to talk about the township about,
I
works
think
out.
I think it's very similar to the roof situation.
yeah, but we never
Whereas we
talked that
don't-
out.
We don't own the building, but we also don't rent the building. The building is provided to us by the township to provide the service to the community. And in order to provide that service to the community, we should have functional bathrooms. So therefore,
But that's the law, okay? So whether we pay rent or we don't pay rent, that's not up to us. That's all written in legal talk. And I have no problem. We have the money. I said, give the money back if we don't need the money, or do something like fix the bathroom. But could we talk about it? We
we are
can't
talking about
talk
it.
about it.
We are
We
talking
talk
about it.
about what's planned to be done in the bathroom.
Okay.
Okay, what's it
So-
gonna cost? And how do we work it? What do all this CPS and whatever you're talking about? I have no idea how we pay for it. That ought to be talked about before you start it.
So I think that we have to go out and have some professionals come in and take a look and tell us what's required, right? I don't know what's,
Yeah.
again, to the point before, I don't really, I'm not a plumber, so I don't know how to fix a bathroom. So I would leave it up to someone professional to come in
Absolutely.
and advise me and probably get a second opinion and then make my decision based off of that. And I
And-
think that's what we're doing.
and that's exactly what we're doing. So I brought this up with buildings and grounds. The thing is, bathrooms don't last forever. I believe that these are original to the building. We're replacing pipe by pipe and fixture by fixture, and it's incredibly expensive. And Dr. George, I understand it's always been, from what I've been taught and all the training I received from the state, was that the municipal allocation that the town is required to give is also for the maintenance of the facility. Now, when it
Yeah.
comes to something bigger, that,
And now
like
we
the
go down
roof,
to
that can
maintenance.
come into question. So all this is getting an architectural drawing. There's two pieces
That's
in
good.
this.
No problem. I have
One
no
is-
problem with that.
One is the architectural drawing for one suite of bathrooms, not every bathroom in the building, because that would be incredibly disruptive. So just getting the drawings done is around $25,000 for the drawings to even create a proposal. And then you can talk about costs and things like that. There's one other part of this. our executive assistant for finance has been sitting in an office with the server tower since anyone
I know,
remembers.
we've discussed that forever.
So I
And I
looked,
agree with you, it's wrong, okay?
yeah.
But we can keep discussing it, because that's what we've done for the last 10 years, but.
So here's my solution, because we got an estimate. So because of the way our building is wired, to move that tower would cost us heading for $100,000. So instead of doing that, Irene doesn't need the full office. We can simply build a wall for the closet. It's got I've had contractors when they were here, I always, try to get informal feedback. So all this is hiring the architect, and it's not even a decision on an architect. It's the RFP that I went through and made, and Chris went over and corrected to make sure that it was where it needs to be. And it'll simply be put on our website, put on the town site, published in the newspaper. I've given it a month. And then in October, we'll be able to at least look at an architect and see if we want to move forward with an architect. So I just want everybody to know that these projects are coming.
And you brought that one up before, because we got the solution of building something around it presented us before, which I thought was fine. That ought to go with buildings and grounds, but anyway.
So bathroom renovations and things like that, does that go through municipal funding? Is that?
So our
Or what?
municipal allocation so I don't believe that Old Bridge has a formal agreement for sharing the building. And this is a common problem in public libraries, period.
We have a lawyer.
Some have an agreement, some don't have an agreement for what responsibilities are. Most libraries prefer, and towns prefer, to leave it a little vague and work together. So when this happens, the state then determines our municipal allocation every year from our tax roll. And it's 1/3 of a mil. And there's training at the state level, if you want more background in this, that I can show you where their presentations are, because they really do a good job of explaining things. And that's the calculation. Now what happens is that's the money for your books and your staff and all of that. It's also for maintenance of your building. But you work out the bigger costs with your municipality. So for instance, the library doesn't have $2 million for a new roof. That's when you typically go back to the mayor and the council and say, the library needs a new roof, you provide a library building, so this is where it comes. In the meantime, we also have a capital fund so that we can make a contribution to the town from our funds.
Maddie, sometime we could meet some people and tell you what the history of this was, because we've gone through all of this. And we've gone through it with the roof. I think we gave them 200,000. All I
Gave
think.
him 80,000.
Huh? I'm not
80,000.
arguing with Frank. It doesn't matter to me. But anyway, all I want is that the people that are paying the taxes know that we do our share of helping out with things we don't have to do. We plow that parking lot with snow. What did it cost us this year for snow? It didn't even snow. But we do more than our share. Just say we do it. And just let us sit down and talk. A long time ago, we had a committee, and I was on the Board of Ed then. It was the Board of Ed and the township people. We should have a committee with us and the township people and talk about how we get these things resolved. Why would we keep money in the bank and not have the bathrooms fixed? Doesn't make sense. And I think whatever you have to do to get it done, and I think it gets very tricky on what goes into capital, what doesn't. That's what we have Chris for. And I don't think anybody expects you to know everything about law and stuff like that. So when you need help with what has to go out to who and who does what, that's what he's there for. And then we go by it. A lot of it, I personally don't know anything about, and I don't care. I just want to see it done. That
Okay.
girl sitting there with that big tower next to her, man, I wouldn't have done that if I worked
Yeah.
here.
Okay,
And
so
And that's what we're doing. We're
Yeah.
moving
Yeah.
forward
We're
with
moving.
that project.
one other new old thing. The library started building in 1987. It was opened in 1991. And the same architect that built this library, designed it with that
Yeah.
roof, was in a number of other libraries. He got sued. There was a lawsuit. I don't know the details. I don't think we either participated or we didn't get it fixed. But if we have a list of whoever filed that lawsuit, potentially, if it's the same roofing design, maybe they can refer us to one of those libraries who has gotten their roof fixed. And that's something, obviously, because Dawn, I know for the time period you're here, it used to be like a monsoon before, but
Right,
it
we've
still
gotten it
leaks.
fixed, Frank.
All of it?
Yeah,
And gradually you're doing it, right? You're getting
Yeah.
it done a little bit.
DP
All right, offline, I'll
Not
talk to you
going
about
to
that.
DPW had them come in and do a repair, and the major areas where we had leaks before, we still get water occasionally, but I believe it's the window seals that are starting to deteriorate.
Okay.
So, okay,
Let's keep
Send
moving.
it to the
So-
Buildings and Grounds Committee. Rock
Yeah,
and roll.
yeah, we're gonna move on.
okay. So that was the RFP that's gonna be published, and next month, we should have a selection from we'll have all those proposals.
Okay.
The underspending we talked about, recycling overflow. Now that we have the book sale going, we are having some issues with taking donations again. The book drop was stuffed with donations, which are not supposed to go there, little things like that. And our recycling containers are no longer sufficient because now we're recycling all the books. So we're working on that with the town, but I just want you to be aware that there is an impact from that in the book sale. I put a picture in the report of the logo that I would like to use temporarily. It was in everyone's report. It's a simple update and a very similar logo. The website company, I didn't realize, does that for us for free. Them going over and cleaning up our logo. Our previous logo was not done with enough definition for current monitors and websites and things like that. So as long as there are no objections, we're gonna move ahead. It's very similar. And it looks, I got the draft of the copy of the website today, and already without making major changes, it's so much cleaner. It's gonna be more accessible to people who are
This-
visually impaired, a lot of things like that.
The one that you are suggesting is that second one.
Yes,
The problem I have with that, and well, whatever, is Old Bridge Public Library. Old Bridge Public Library is said twice. Why is that? People are not idiots. If they read Old Bridge Public Library at the top, they know it's at the bottom. I like the open book and I like the Old Bridge Public Library, but I don't think it needs it at the top also.
I'm sorry, it's not. That
Okay.
you're absolutely right. That top piece is not part of it. That's just
Okay.
a smaller version of it.
The smaller version, that's fine.
Yeah, one it's on the right of the book and one it's under the book. So we'll be able to use both of those. And then they give us that copy, so we're not paying a graphic designer and we have the whole thing.
I thought you were suggesting that as
Oh,
one. layer.
no,
Okay.
no,
All right.
okay. All right, so we'll move forward with that. The other thing that I want to do with that logo is we have the little tags that say librarian or library assistant. And I think it modernizes us and it makes us more visible. I'm gonna be getting lanyards, that cord that goes around
Yeah.
people's necks with a little plastic card that'll have that logo on it that just says staff. The public doesn't understand the difference between a library assistant and a librarian. They're just looking for anybody with that visual, and I think it's going to identify our employees, and it's also important for safety. If a child goes around and they can see that library
I
logo,
think
they
it's a
know who
good
we are.
idea. I'd even make them different colors, so it stood out more, but it's a good idea.
Yeah, staff are gonna like it. Okay, next. Did everyone have a chance to take a look at the infographic? So what this is it was in the report, and this is a draft. It's a template for now that we're staffed where we need to be, I can start giving you things in advance. So
Did you
this is, it's sort of, instead of doing some long report for the community, that no one's probably going to read, or a few people will, we'll still do that. But an infographic is just a quick look at your library value, what you're getting in the library. So as
The
an
only thing is
example,
it's gotta be easily readable. It's not, you're not gonna be those colors. The blue, is there anything in the blue box? Cause you can't even read that.
yeah, and I have to
Green
tell
box
you,
is hard.
what came out in the board's packet isn't nearly as clear as this.
Okay.
I would need to get you a
That's what
print
I'm-
copy, which we
Okay.
can do. The major, I mean, like 4,555 passports issued, 193,611 visitors to the library. And then this is something that we could either mail out, but it's just raising awareness of the library. So it's part of marketing, but it's also taking those annual statistics. And like I said, rather than some 10-page report, I like that, our major things for this year. We opened up the Lawrence Harbor location, partnered with the Cultural Arts Committee, restarted the Friends Group, and you got a new director in 2023.
Mhm.
That's what happened. The question I have for everyone is some of these will put a library calculator, what each person's tax investment is in the library. That can be a little, I don't know if you want that on there. So I did the calculation with the 66,000 people and with the library's appropriation. And I have to make sure that I did that correctly, but it was around $54 a year per person, which
It's
if you
on our
look at it,
tax bill, isn't it? I think it's on our tax bill, what our percentage is too. Could you have this put perhaps in other mailings, like the tax bill thing?
absolutely.
Those, we need to
And-
talk to people. The Board of Ed might have something they're mailing out. If they could put that in. It's good information.
What we can maybe do is do a one-page ad in the all around Old Bridge or something.
Sure,
You might be able
absolutely.
to hook it up actually as a monthly
Yeah,
edition, where someone could do a report and that could actually just be
Yeah.
a report.
yeah,
where you
something like
show
that.
the statistics.
Yeah, and that's what we just called it 2023 year in review, Old Bridge Public Library. And then and I just want to make sure that we're doing things like this, first of all, annually for our little report to the community. But then also, you can do other things like how many ebooks do you have access to in the consortium? So this is just something that's going to be part of our newsletters and that external communication to the community. So if nobody has any objections to anything that's on here, we'll move ahead. Okay, wonderful.
Thank you, it's great.
Yep.
One
the
of the,
town-
one of the other places you might want to go to is the tax assessor should be able to give you any new people who are closing on a home. And that might be something you might want to send to them in a welcome to Old Bridge Library packet.
Yeah, a welcome to Old Bridge packet is definitely something that we, to OBPL is something that we should have. We'll get started on that. Okay. We're getting a new phone system, end of October or November. We've been talking about it for a while. With that, we are going to start promoting the library's direct phone number
Yeah.
versus going through the phone tree for the town. And yeah, it'll finally not say that we still have curbside delivery. So we'll get that done. Promoting the direct line. The audit is starting. It's starting while I'm away on the 17th and 18th. There shouldn't be any issue of mine not being here. That's primarily something for Irene, but it is starting. And I wanted everyone to know with that draft of the website, so we don't want to have the public have change fatigue. So we already had the catalog transition, then we had, we're gonna have the website change, and then we have to do a reorganization of things on the website. Once all of that is done, then we're gonna start the formal process of doing a community survey with the website and looking for a redesign. But in that process, with making those changes, the company that we selected, they actually had to reach out to Jersey Connect because the code that was on top of our website, on top of the WordPress, was so complicated that the strings kept breaking. They couldn't even get it done. So just want you to know that we've definitely done something great there. For my professional development this year, I just want to confirm, I'd reported this some months ago, but I plan on attending the Directors Summit. This is Library Journal Director Summit, and it's going to be in Columbia, South Carolina. There is no fee for the conference itself. You only pay for airfare and hotel and those kinds of things. I will say that this is the best conference that I've ever been to. I went in Washington, DC, and somewhere else. I don't remember where. But I'm gonna start making those arrangements.
Okay.
All right. So one of the things that we did this month, and I hope that the Personnel Committee was okay with that, we have had requests for some changes to the personnel manual. So we went ahead and just put them together just so that it was comprehensively for the Personnel Committee to take a look at.
Well, I think the personnel manual always was kind of a problem because we already have contracts. We don't need stuff repeated. And some of the stuff that was repeated incorrectly. The personnel committee, we haven't met, and I don't know whether it's our job to go through the personnel manual. I would give the personnel manual to Chris, let him go through it and decide what's right and what's wrong. And whatever costs, it's good money well spent. I'm not gonna sit and go through the personnel manual. I'm not gonna do that. So,
Okay.
you know, and the staff doing it, and the staff give us comments of what they want in there or they don't. Their input's interesting, but it's not gonna tell me what I'm gonna put in a personnel manual. I think.
Right, and that's what they were only requests.
Well, but it's, why waste people's time? You know, I mean, just find out what's in there that's redundant, because it's also in the negotiation, so it's in their contract, and take it out. It doesn't belong there. But anyway, good shot. That's another thing that's been sitting around here and needed attention for a long time, and you finally grabbed it and are doing it. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, and then I will be sending to the Personnel Committee. We do need to take a look at our meeting room policy. There's a couple of issues. Number
What do we
one,
have to do with that?
what's that?
Did you mean
policy?
policy? Not
I'm
Policy
sorry,
committee.
not Personnel Committee, Policy Committee.
All right. I
Sorry.
don't mean to be punchy, but I was giving it to
You're
buildings and
good.
grounds.
I'm clearly getting punchy, which is, so the policy committee will be getting, just a review of the meeting room policy. So right now we kind of, with the insurance requirement, we're sort of prioritizing businesses over individuals in the community. And then the state said, fairly recently that you're not allowed to charge a fee anymore to businesses for using it. But at the same time, with us not having full-time cleaning and custodial staff, it makes it difficult. A business comes in, they want to bring in food, who's cleaning that up? They're leaving their food for the staff. I don't want food that's been in someone's meeting all day. We're not gonna eat that. So just some things like that. So we're gonna go through and just bring some recommendations to the policy committee next month. And then with Hoopla, we have regular Hoopla right now. Does anybody here use it? Yeah. We have a lot of people who do. It's streaming movies, books, music, magazines, all things like that. And we've really relied on it to get us through updating our e-materials collection. There's a part of that I'm going to be sending a proposal for next month for increasing about another $6,000 or $7,000, but for a slightly different project. But I just want you to know that things are coming. That'll be next month. The other thing, the last thing that I have to address is the temporary hire. We do have someone who's going to be out on leave. It does say in our, I believe that's the personnel manual. It says that the director can make a temporary hire for a leave of absence. And I just want to make sure before I go through that this is not news to anyone.
It's news to
And that
me.
we would be making that hire.
That's news. I mean, we have substitute personnel, we have per diem personnel. So there's already ways that you can hire people to fill in for a period of time. I don't think we ever let the director do hiring on their own. And then that goes back again, history to a long time ago, and I'm not gonna bore you with that now, but we did get the definition then, so I don't know why why can't you hire a substitute for a period of, the person's getting a leave from December 12th to February 3rd, so you kind of know when the leave is coming in?
Yes, we do.
So.
Yeah,
you
and it's
just put
basically
us-
the same thing. It
You
is
just-
just hiring a substitute,
But
but
they're-
rather than,
You're
rather
gonna
than-
assign a substitute, not hire one.
what's that?
You would be assigning a substitute,
Yeah, okay.
assigning
I
a
don't
staff
think-
member.
So you would bring in a substitute. So what,
got
so the
substitutes.
question is, I believe, why are we not going the substitute route or the per diem route? And it might be the definitions of those, which answers the question.
So one of the
You
things
pick
that
out
was,
whoever you want. You know who your substitutes, your per diem people are. You would
Okay,
know who you want for that job.
Let's get a
Let's clarify.
clarification on the, let's get a clarification on the roles, Good.
our substitutes are not going to be able to fill in for 35 hours a week. So if we're hiring,
Well,
if we're
I think
hiring,
you gotta
addition-
try that. If you get the answer that they're not, then we go to step.
I already know that.
Okay, so wait. So if you were to go to the substitutes and request one and say, we're looking for one of you to cover 35 hours a week, and we need a commitment, and nobody replies, then what's the next resort?
It's hiring another substitute for this specific November to
Which is what
February.
this temp role is.
Exactly.
With full-time availability.
Yes,
It's a substitute with a full-time availability, stipulated that the start date is such and such and the end date is such and such.
yeah. And then that person would be included with the per diems moving after that time period had ended, because the person would have a record of with us.
The distinction here, it is in the personnel manual, it is the authority of the director. The distinction, Joan, is just like in schools, like a replacement teacher, when somebody goes out on a long-term leave and it's like a long-term sub.
Yeah, well,
It's slightly
that's, I
different
don't
animal
know
because the
why,
availability is vitally important.
but the difference I see is whether we're assigning somebody who's already an employee to do this, or we're going out and we're picking somebody that the board doesn't even know and the director is hiring them to do it. That I don't think she can do. I think she can use the staff that's there. Now, if those people do not want this kind of job, come back and talk to us. And we'll talk to you, Chris, and the union, because you're talking about terms and conditions of employment and stuff like that.
And I'm just looking at what's already
Yeah, this
stated
is,
in the
this is
personnel
in place.
manual.
This is in place at this point and actually has been since, well, I don't know when the last time the personnel manual was revised, and that goes back to our previous conversation, but it is in there now and has been for years, and the union is aware of that.
So-
Whatever.
So, yeah, so I think a good example of that is what was brought up. It's much like a long-term substitute teacher.
And at that basically, when we're looking, and obviously we'd ask anybody here, if anybody wants to do it for 3 months, we don't have anybody who's able to commit to that, but with going out to that, I would work very closely with Chris and let you know what's going on to get any questions answered about how things are worded.
So Rocco, how does the schools go about getting a long-term substitute? They don't go through their list of substitutes, right? They
No.
post for that.
Right, they
Right.
post, it's a posted position
Oh.
and is interviewed by our interview committee and
And so any of the substitutes, well, I was just gonna say, any of the
Yeah,
substitutes
they are
are.
free to
They're
apply.
hired by
free
the
to apply.
board.
they're
Right.
free to apply. Again, anybody
Right.
who, as long as you meet the certifications
Correct.
and the
Okay.
job requirements, then
Right.
you are free to apply.
Okay, got it.
Like I said, I just wanted to cover that it was in, that the
Mhm.
director can do that for
Right.
special circumstances.
Right, okay,
And that's all I have.
very good. So,
Whoa,
okay,
You had something that you promised us and it's in your director's report.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yep, I didn't put it on my list. So, I apologize, Dr. George. I will
Not a
send you.
problem.
No, I have so I had responses from two banks. One is Columbia, basically the local banks,
had
the big
four.
federal, pardon me?
You have three. Columbia, Provident, and Santana.
Right,
I'm
and
looking at you.
the ones who got back to me, there was one, and I'll send you exactly which one is which. There was so we have a 2.5% rate on all of our accounts. We were offered a 3.3 variable, either from Columbia or Provident, and I will confirm as to which one that is. The variable, obviously, the 2.5 is a fixed. And then the other bank said around a 3%, but that they would want, if we want to move forward, they would want to discuss with the trustees and their board of trustees to get together to have a conversation about that. So those are the ones that answered me. So basically, before we're jumping through additional hoops, it's for, a 0.5% or more, does the board want to move and sever the relationship with Amboy?
Are they willing to?
I can go back to them and ask them, tell them that we've been
Yeah,
offered higher elsewhere. So
I
they
think
already
you're-
increased it once.
You're making something a bigger deal than I started. All I wanted was information. And I think that Amboy met with you, you got a big difference in interest payment. This 2.5 is a lot different than 0.02. So they've done something. Now, the others, they want to make it more complicated. They want to know what each account is. Why? That's why they want the difference. You want a CD or you want a savings account, whatever. You don't need to do that much. Now, I think you did what I asked to do, in that you questioned what we were getting at Amboy. They changed it. The other thing that I'm now going to ask to do, and I don't know why we don't do it, is on our, I don't know what you call these things, but on our financial report that has all the junk in it by the month, it's called, but the one where you put you have the bank, what kind of an account it is, how much money is there, but you don't have anything else. Why can't we know how much interest we get every month? Like we do on the other accounts that are in that same report.
So when I got here, I made an assumption that the board was happy with the reports as they were prepared. If we want to change them, I'm happy to request that they be changed.
Well, first of all, the board will speak for the board. I don't understand why we don't know that for interest when we know it for every other account. Well, I can't find it now. But anyway, you know what I'm talking about. Down on the page in the corner, I'm showing you with my fingers. It has the listing
Oh, okay,
of income, right?
okay.
It's on this one, isn't it?
So you want the percentage rates added to that?
What I would like to know is what we make in interest every month on each one of those accounts. If we do it for everything else, we do it on fines, we do it on whatever other income we have. If I'm the only one that wants it, then just ignore me.
So you can
Okay.
take that away and see if that's doable.
I can certainly do that.
Okay, thank you.
So am I continuing with the banks?
And I'll leave them alone now, if you're asking me. If you were doing
Would
that to
anybody-
satisfy me,
would
you got the
anybody,
information, and
any-
that's fine, that's
Any
all.
member of the trustees wish to Dawn move forward with any of the other banks? In my opinion, is to sever a tie with Amboy Bank, who's giving us a location down in Lawrence Harbor for a 0.5% is.
But see, I don't want to
that's
get into
us.
that because I don't know what the legality of that is, and I'm not going to get into bartering stuff. And it's not important, all right?
Yeah.
And let's not upset people where they don't have to be upset. There's nobody that's saying, okay, give me your money, I'm going to give you 4%. They didn't say that to you. So
Yeah.
whatever they're offering to you is the same let's not fuss about it.
Please bring all
Okay.
items to the front.
All right, so let's move on to committee reports. Buildings and grounds, Rocco, we've covered,
Hold on.
right? Okay. Finance, we discussed finance earlier. I will get something moving on that. Outreach and marketing, Frank, nothing to update there, correct?
Now I'll start doing some more homework on another location.
Thank you. And then personnel negotiations, I know Chris had mentioned that that's gonna start moving, so
Yes.
that's essentially our update. Okay. Policy,
Nothing, but we'll have
nothing,
something
we
next
will be
month.
having something coming. And technology, we have nothing new going on in technology. So with that, we don't have any members left from the public, from what I see. So I will ask.
Can I ask
Yes.
add one thing?
Yes,
Honestly, I just really absolutely want to thank everyone. The reason why you're getting so much stuff, so much more stuff, is because I appreciate everyone so much who has helped us to get fully staffed with our full-timers, and the programs that are coming. Trust me, I'm making sure that everyone is, I've told them, the board has shown this faith in us. We need to hit it out of the park with everything that we're doing, and I think you're gonna continue to see that from them.
thank you.
Thank
And,
you.
and Dawn, enjoy your vacation. She will be
Yes,
out of the
enjoy.
office starting on the 17th.
17th
Yeah.
until the 23rd, returning on the 24th.
And she did share with me the information of who's going to be supervisor in charge and all the contact information, and they have mine as well, so we should be fine. I'm sure the building will still be standing, like a win when you return.
And our partners in the municipality, we're happy to know as well,
Yeah.
because things do come up.
Yeah. they-
So
yeah,
I made sure that they have the information.
Great, thank you. All right, with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thanks, and Rocco will second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
One opposed? No? Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.